My name is Sarah Lasser, and I'm about to tell you how my own sister didn't just steal my fiance, she stole my entire wedding, wore my dress design, and married him at the exact venue where I was supposed to say I do. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is what I found in her phone that night and what I did with it. Stay with me until the very end, because this story has layers that will make your blood run cold. Welcome back to Family Betrayals That Went Too Far, Episode 1. I'm your host, and today's story will leave you speechless. It's about trust, betrayal, and what happens when the people who are supposed to love you most become your greatest enemies. This is my story, and I'm telling it because I want you to know you're not crazy when you feel something's wrong. Your instincts are usually right. Let me start from the beginning, because every betrayal has its roots somewhere deep. I'm Sarah Lasser, 28 years old, and I used to believe that family meant everything. I work as a marketing manager for a tech startup in Seattle, and I've always been the responsible one. The planner. The one who thinks 3 steps ahead. 2 years ago, I got engaged to Marcus Thompson, my college sweetheart. We'd been together for 4 years, and when he proposed during our weekend trip to San Juan Islands, I thought my life was finally falling into place. I remember calling my family immediately after he got down on one knee, my hands shaking as I held up the ring to the camera during our FaceTime call. "Oh my God, Sarah!" My younger sister Emma squealed through the phone. "It's gorgeous! I'm so happy for you!" My parents were crying happy tears, and even my usually stoic brother David smiled. But it was Emma's reaction that meant the most to me. She was 24, fresh out of college, and we'd always been close despite the 4-year age gap. She was the creative one, a graphic designer who could make anything look beautiful. I was the logical one who made sure bills got paid and schedules were kept. "I can't wait to help you plan everything," Emma said, her eyes sparkling. "This is going to be the most beautiful wedding ever." And that's exactly what I intended it to be. I threw myself into wedding planning with the intensity of someone launching a new product. I created spreadsheets, mood boards, and timeline documents. I researched vendors for months, reading hundreds of reviews and comparing prices. This wasn't just going to be a wedding, it was going to be a masterpiece. The venue was the most important decision. I must have visited 30 different locations around the Seattle area, but nothing felt right. They were either too expensive, too generic, or too small. I was starting to panic when my grandmother, Nai, pulled me aside during one of our Sunday dinners. "Sarah, dear," she said in her gentle but firm way, "have you considered Willowbrook Estate?" I hadn't heard of it. "Where's that, Nai?" Her eyes got that distant look they always did when she was remembering something precious. "It's about an hour north of here, right on Lake Sammamish. Your grandfather proposed to me there in 1952. It was just a private estate then, but I heard they started renting it out for weddings about 5 years ago." The next weekend, Marcus and I drove up to see it. The moment I saw Willowbrook Estate, I knew. It was perfect. A 1920s mansion with manicured gardens that rolled down to a private lakefront. The ceremony space was an outdoor pavilion with white columns and views of the water. The reception hall had floor-to-ceiling windows and original hardwood floors that gleamed in the afternoon light. "This is it," I whispered to Marcus as we stood on the terrace overlooking the lake. "You sure?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "It's pretty expensive." It was. $25,000 for the venue alone, plus mandatory catering minimums that would bring the total to nearly $40,000. But I'd been saving for this wedding since I got my first job out of college. I had $60,000 in my wedding fund, and I was determined to use every penny to make this perfect. "I'm sure," I said. "My grandmother's right. This place is magical." The owner, Mrs. Patterson, was a woman in her 70s who'd inherited the estate from her parents. She only booked 12 weddings per year to keep it exclusive. When I told her about my grandmother's connection to the property, her whole demeanor changed. "Lasser," she repeated thoughtfully. "Would your grandmother be Margaret Lasser?" "Yes. You know her?" Mrs. Patterson smiled. "She and her husband used to come to our summer parties when I was a little girl. Margaret was always so elegant, so kind. I'd be honored to host your wedding here." She gave me a tour of the bridal suite, A beautiful room on the second floor with a view of the garden. "This is where you'll get ready on your wedding day," she said. "Your grandmother got ready in this very room for her own wedding photos here in 1952. I put down a $5,000 deposit that day and booked the date, September 15th, exactly 18 months away. It would be perfect timing, late summer, when the gardens would still be in bloom, but the weather wouldn't be too hot. Over the next few months, I built my dream wedding piece by piece. I found the perfect caterer, a husband and wife team who specialized in farm-to-table cuisine. I booked a florist who created arrangements that looked like they grew naturally in the garden. I hired a photographer whose work looked like something out of a fairy tale. The dress was the hardest part. I must have tried on 100 dresses before I found the one at a boutique in Capitol Hill. It was a vintage-inspired gown with intricate lace sleeves and a cathedral train. The moment I put it on, I started crying. "That's the one," the seamstress said immediately. "I can tell by the way you're standing." But at $3,000, it was way over my budget. I was about to leave when Emma grabbed my arm. "Sarah, you have to get this dress. It's perfect on you." "I can't afford it, Em. I've already spent so much on the venue." "Then I'll help you pay for it," she said without hesitation. "Consider it my maid of honor gift." I hugged her so tightly, I nearly knocked her over. "Are you sure? That's so much money." "You're my sister," she said simply. "I want you to have the perfect wedding." That was Emma. Always generous, always thinking of others. She put down $1,500 that day, and I promised to pay her back after the wedding. The dress needed extensive alterations. The seamstress, Maria, spent hours with me over the next several months, adjusting every detail. She even hand-sewed additional lace appliques to match my grandmother's vintage jewelry. "I'm making this dress specifically for you," Maria explained during one of our fittings. "The measurements, the proportions, everything is customized to your body. No one else could wear this dress the way you will." Emma came with me to most of the fittings. She had such a good eye for detail, and she'd take photos of the dress from every angle, saying she wanted to remember every moment of my wedding preparation. "You're going to be the most beautiful bride," she'd say, adjusting my veil or smoothing down the train. "Marcus is so lucky." Speaking of Marcus, he was surprisingly hands-off about the wedding planning. I'd ask for his opinion on flowers or music, and he'd usually say, "Whatever you want, babe. I trust your judgment." At first, I thought it was sweet that he trusted me to handle everything. But as the months went on, I started to feel like I was planning this wedding by myself. "Don't you care about any of this?" I asked him one evening as I showed him centerpiece options. "Of course I care," he said, barely looking up from his phone. "I just don't have opinions about flowers and stuff. That's more your thing. But this is our wedding, Marcus. Our day." He finally looked up at me, and I saw something in his eyes I couldn't quite identify. Impatience? Annoyance? "Sarah, you're incredible at this stuff. You've planned everything perfectly. I don't need to micromanage." I pushed down the feeling that something was off. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe this was just how guys approached weddings. Emma, on the other hand, was involved in every detail. She designed our wedding invitations, created a custom monogram for us, and even made a wedding website with an interactive map of the venue. She spent hours helping me research vendors and compare prices. "I love doing this with you," she said one night as we worked on seating charts at my kitchen table. "I feel like I'm getting a preview of planning my own wedding someday." "When you get married, I'll help you plan everything," I promised. "We'll make it even more beautiful than mine." She got quiet for a moment, then smiled. "That's impossible. Your wedding is going to be perfect." As my wedding date approached, I started having the strangest feeling that something was wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it, but little things kept bothering me. Marcus would disappear for hours without explanation. He'd get text messages that made him smile in a way that seemed secretive. He'd put his phone face down when I walked into the room. "Are you okay?" I asked him one night about a month before the wedding. "You seem distant lately." "I'm fine," he said quickly. "Just stressed about work." But when I called his office the next day to surprise him with lunch, his assistant said he'd been leaving early all week. I started paying closer attention. I noticed he'd started going to the gym more often, wearing cologne I'd never smelled before, and buying new clothes. When I complimented him on a new shirt, he said he'd had it for months. Have you ever experienced something like this with your own family? I want to ask you, because looking back, I think I knew something was wrong long before I was ready to admit it to myself. The final straw came 3 weeks before my wedding. Marcus and I were supposed to have a final meeting with our wedding planner, but he canceled at the last minute, saying he had a work emergency. I went alone, feeling embarrassed and making excuses for him. That night, I decided to surprise him at his apartment with takeout from his favorite restaurant. I used my key to let myself in, calling his name as I walked through the door. Marcus? I brought Chinese food. The apartment was quiet, but I could hear voices coming from his bedroom. My heart stopped. I set the food down on the counter and walked quietly down the hallway. The voices got clearer as I approached his room. Marcus was talking to someone on the phone, and his voice had a tone I'd never heard before. Intimate, loving, excited. I can't wait, he was saying. Just 3 more weeks and we can stop hiding. 3 more weeks. 3 weeks until my wedding. I pressed my ear against the door, my hands shaking. I know it's been hard, Marcus continued, but we're almost there. After the wedding is called off, we can be together publicly. After the wedding is called off. My knees nearly gave out. I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself, my mind reeling. Marcus was planning to call off our wedding 3 weeks before the date. I love you too, he said softly. I can't wait to start our life together. I backed away from the door, my heart hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. I grabbed the Chinese food and practically ran out of his apartment, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the lock. I sat in my car in his parking lot for 20 minutes, crying and trying to process what I'd just heard. Marcus was planning to leave me 3 weeks before our wedding. After I'd spent 2 years and $50,000 planning what I thought was going to be the happiest day of my life. But who was he talking to? Who was he planning to be with after he left me? I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with questions. How long had this been going on? Did everyone know except me? Was I the only one who thought we were happy? That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every strange moment, every time he'd seemed distant or secretive. The signs had been there. I'd just been too busy planning our perfect wedding to see them. The next morning, I called Emma. She was the only person I trusted completely, the only one who would understand how devastated I was. Em, I need to talk to you, I said when she answered. Can you come over? What's wrong? She asked immediately. You sound terrible. I think Marcus is going to leave me. There was a pause. What? Sarah, what are you talking about? Can you just come over? I need my sister. Of course, she said quickly. I'll be right there. But when Emma arrived at my apartment 20 minutes later, something was different about her. She seemed nervous, fidgety. She kept checking her phone and wouldn't quite meet my eyes. Tell me what happened, she said, sitting on the edge of my couch like she was ready to run. I told her everything. The overheard phone conversation, the strange behavior, the feeling I'd been having for months that something was wrong. As I talked, I watched her face carefully, looking for the shock and outrage I expected. Instead, she looked guilty. Emma, I said slowly, is there something you're not telling me? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced at it quickly before shoving it back in her purse. Emma. I don't know what to say, Sarah. Maybe you misheard him? Maybe he was talking about something else? He said after the wedding is called off. What else could that mean? She stood up suddenly. I should go. I have a client meeting. Since when do you have meetings on Sunday? It's a new client, very demanding. She was already heading for the door. We'll figure this out, okay? Maybe you should talk to Marcus directly. After she left, I sat in my living room feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. Something was very, very wrong. And I had the terrible feeling that my sister, my best friend, my maid of honor, the person I trusted most in the world, knew exactly what it was. The next few days were torture. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, going through the motions of my normal life while my world quietly fell apart around me. I kept thinking about that phone call, replaying Marcus's words over and over in my head. Just 3 more weeks and we can stop hiding. Hiding what? Hiding from whom? I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I called in sick to work because I couldn't concentrate on anything. Every time my phone rang, I jumped, thinking it might be Marcus calling to break up with me, but he didn't call. He texted me like nothing had changed, sending me his usual good morning and how's your day messages. When I responded, he seemed normal, loving even. It was like I'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe I had misheard him. Maybe Emma was right and he'd been talking about something else entirely. Maybe I was being paranoid. But deep down, I knew what I'd heard. On Wednesday, Marcus suggested we go to dinner to discuss final wedding details. We met at our usual place, a little Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. He seemed nervous, fidgeting with his napkin and avoiding eye contact. So, he said after we'd ordered, "There's something we need to talk about." My heart stopped. This was it. He was going to end our engagement right here, 3 weeks before our wedding. "What is it?" I managed to say. He took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about the wedding and I'm wondering if we should postpone it." "Postpone it," I repeated. "Marcus, we're 3 weeks out. The vendors are booked, the dress is altered, the invitations went out months ago." I know, but I've been feeling overwhelmed lately. Like maybe we're rushing into this." "Rushing?" I stared at him. "We've been engaged for 2 years. We've been together for 4 years. How is that rushing?" "I just need some time to think," he said, still not meeting my eyes. "Maybe we could push it back to next spring?" "Are you kidding me right now?" My voice was getting louder, and other diners were starting to look at us. "You want to cancel our wedding 3 weeks before the date because you need time to think?" "I'm not canceling it," he said defensively. "I'm just suggesting we postpone." "That's the same thing, Marcus." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "Do you have any idea what this would cost me? The deposits alone are $30,000. The dress alterations can't be undone. The vendors have turned down other bookings for our date." "I'll help you with the money," he said quietly. "I don't want your help with the money. I want to know why you're doing this." I was shaking now, my voice cracking. "Is there someone else?" He finally looked at me, and I saw the answer in his eyes before he even spoke. "Sarah, there is someone else. It wasn't a question. How long?" "It's not what you think." "How long, Marcus?" He stared down at his hands. "A few months." A few months. While I was planning our wedding, choosing flowers and tasting cakes and having my dress altered, he was with someone else. "Who is it?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." "Who is it?" He was quiet for so long I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear him, he said, "It's Emma." The restaurant went silent around me. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. "What did you say?" "Sarah, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen." "Emma?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "My sister Emma?" He nodded, not looking at me. I sat back down, not because I wanted to, because my legs wouldn't hold me up anymore. My sister. My maid of honor. The person who'd helped me plan this wedding, who'd paid for part of my dress, who'd been involved in every detail. "How long?" I asked again. "Sarah." "How long, Marcus?" 6 months, he said finally. 6 months. I thought back to 6 months ago. That was when Emma had started helping me with the wedding planning. That was when she'd started coming to all my dress fittings, taking photos of everything, asking detailed questions about our vendors and timeline. "She's been helping me plan our wedding for 6 months, I said, more to myself than to him. "She's been helping me plan your wedding to someone else." "It's not like that." "What is it like, Marcus?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been lying to me for 6 months while I spent $50,000 on a wedding that was never going to happen." People were definitely staring now, but I didn't care. My entire life was falling apart, and I needed answers. "We tried to stop," he said desperately. "We both felt terrible about it, but we couldn't stay away from each other." "So you decided to let me plan this elaborate wedding instead of just telling me the truth?" "We thought maybe if we gave it time, the feelings would go away. We thought maybe we could get through the wedding and then figure things out later." "Get through the wedding?" I stared at him. "You were planning to marry me while you were in love with my sister?" I don't know what we were planning, he snapped. This whole thing has been a mess from the beginning. I never should have proposed to you. The words hit me like a physical blow. You never should have proposed to me. I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? I was crying now, ugly tears that I couldn't stop. Because it sounds like you're saying this whole thing was a mistake. Our entire relationship was a mistake. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Marcus? Because I'm really confused right now. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm saying I'm sorry. I'm saying I never meant to hurt you. And I'm saying I can't marry you. There it was. The words I'd been dreading for weeks. Because you're in love with my sister. Yes. I wiped my eyes with my napkin, trying to pull myself together. How did this happen? When did you even start talking to her? She reached out to me a few months after we got engaged, he said. She wanted to plan a surprise bachelor party for me. We started texting about it, and then we started talking about other things. She's really easy to talk to. She's easy to talk to, I repeated. And I'm not. That's not what I meant? No. I think that's exactly what you meant. I'm the uptight one who plans everything to death, and she's the fun, creative one who's easy to talk to. Sarah, you're putting words in my mouth. Am I? I stood up again, grabbing my purse. You know what, Marcus? You're right. You never should have proposed to me. Because if you had any doubt about whether you wanted to marry me, you should have figured that out before you let me spend 2 years of my life planning a wedding that was never going to happen. I started to walk away, then turned back. One more question. Does she know? About tonight? About you ending our engagement? He nodded. She knows. So she's been waiting for you to dump me. It's not like that. That's exactly what it's like. I laughed, but it came out bitter and harsh. My sister has been helping me plan my wedding while she waited for my fiancé to leave me for her. That's exactly what it's like. I left him sitting there and walked out into the parking lot. I sat in my car for a long time, crying and trying to process what had just happened. My engagement was over. My wedding was canceled. My sister had betrayed me in the worst possible way. But somehow, the thing that hurt the most was knowing that Emma had been lying to me for 6 months. Every time she'd helped me with wedding planning, every time she'd told me how beautiful I looked in my dress, every time she'd said she was excited for my wedding, she'd been lying. I drove home and called her immediately. Sarah, she answered on the first ring. How did dinner go? Really? I said. You're gonna pretend you don't know? There was a pause. I don't know what you mean. Marcus just broke up with me, Emma. He told me about you two. Another pause, longer this time. Sarah, I can explain. Explain what? How you've been sleeping with my fiancé for 6 months? How you've been helping me plan a wedding that you knew was never going to happen? It's not like that. Stop saying it's not like that, I screamed. Because it is exactly like that. You've been lying to me for 6 months. I never meant for this to happen, she said, and I could hear that she was crying too. But it did happen, and you let it keep happening. You let me spend $50,000 on a wedding while you were screwing my fiancé. I tried to stop it, Sarah. I really did. But I love him. You love him, I repeated flatly. You love him. So that makes it okay? No, it doesn't make it okay, but I can't help how I feel. You could have helped what you did about how you felt, I said. You could have told me. You could have stayed away from him. You could have not helped me plan a wedding to a man you were sleeping with. I wanted to tell you so many times, but you didn't. You let me keep planning and spending money and getting excited about marrying someone who was going to leave me. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Sarah. Sorry doesn't give me back the last 6 months of my life. Sorry doesn't give me back the $50,000 I spent on a wedding that's never going to happen. Sorry doesn't make this hurt any less. I know it doesn't, but I need you to know that I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me, Emma. You hurt me more than anyone has ever hurt me in my entire life. I love you, she said desperately. You're my sister. I love you so much. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this to me. I hung up the phone and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, but I didn't care. I was done. Done with Marcus, done with Emma, done with all of it. I spent the next 3 days in my apartment, crying and trying to figure out how to cancel a wedding 3 weeks before the date. I called Mrs. Patterson at the venue first. "I'm so sorry," I told her, "but I need to cancel my wedding." "Oh dear," she said sadly. "I'm so sorry to hear that. Are you sure there's no way to work things out?" "I'm sure." "Well, I'm afraid the contract is very clear about cancellations this close to the event date. I can't refund your deposit, but I can offer you a credit for a future event." "A future event," I repeated. "I don't think I'll be having another wedding anytime soon." "You never know, dear. Life has a way of surprising us." I called the caterer next, then the florist, then the photographer. Same story everywhere. No refunds, but they'd be happy to offer me credits for future events. By the time I finished making calls, I'd lost over $30,000. I was ruined. Financially and emotionally ruined. That's when Emma started calling me nonstop. She left voicemails, sent texts, even showed up at my apartment building and buzzed my intercom for 20 minutes. I ignored all of it. Finally, she sent me a text that made me pay attention. "Sarah, I know you hate me right now, and I understand why, but I need you to know that Marcus and I want to make this right. We want to help you with the money you lost. We're going to pay you back for everything." I stared at the text for a long time. They were going to pay me back. With what money? Marcus made decent money as a software engineer, but not enough to casually throw around $30,000. And Emma was a freelance graphic designer who barely made enough to cover her rent. Then I got another text. "We've been talking, and we think the best way to handle this is to go ahead with the wedding as planned. Same date, same venue, same everything. That way, none of the money is wasted. We'll pay you back for all of it over time." I read the text 3 times before the meaning sank in. They wanted to use my wedding for their wedding. They wanted to get married at the venue I'd chosen, with the vendors I'd hired, on the date I'd picked. They wanted to steal my entire wedding. I called Emma immediately. "You cannot be serious," I said the moment she answered. "Sarah, just hear me out. You want to get married at my wedding? We want to use the vendors in the venue so that your money isn't wasted. My money will be wasted either way. Whether you use the vendors or not, I'm still not getting married. But this way, we can pay you back. With what money, Emma? You don't have $30,000. We'll figure it out. We'll take out loans. Stop. Just stop." I was pacing around my apartment now, my hands shaking with rage. "You want to marry my ex-fiancé at the venue I chose, with the flowers I picked, with the menu I planned? We want to make sure your money doesn't go to waste." "It's already wasted," I screamed. "The moment you decided to sleep with my fiancé, my money was wasted." "Sarah, please. No, absolutely not. I will not let you turn my wedding into your wedding. What if we change some of the details? Make it our own. What if you go to hell?" I hung up the phone. But as I sat there in my apartment staring at the wall, I realized something. I couldn't stop them from using the venue. I'd already paid for it, and I couldn't get my money back. Mrs. Patterson had offered me a credit for a future event, which meant I could transfer the booking to someone else. Emma knew this. She'd been with me when I talked to Mrs. Patterson about the contract. She knew that I could give them my wedding date if I wanted to. She was counting on me being too heartbroken to fight her. But she was wrong. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was furious. And I was going to make sure that if they wanted to steal my wedding, they were going to pay for it in ways they couldn't even imagine. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. I wasn't going to let them destroy me. I wasn't going to curl up in my apartment and cry while they lived happily ever after on the ruins of my life. I was going to fight back. But first, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. I needed to understand how deep this betrayal went, how long they'd been planning this, and what they were telling other people about what had happened. I started with social media. Emma had always been active on Instagram, posting photos of her design work and her daily life. I scrolled through her recent posts, looking for any signs of her relationship with Marcus. What I found made my blood run cold. She'd been posting photos of herself at places I recognized, restaurants where Marcus and I used to go, hiking trails we'd discovered together, even his apartment building. but she'd been careful to crop out any identifying details and never tagged him in anything. Looking at the timestamps, I realized she'd been posting these photos for months. She'd been documenting their relationship in plain sight, and I'd been too trusting to notice. But the worst part was the comments. Friends of ours, people who knew about my engagement to Marcus, had been liking and commenting on these photos. Some of them even seemed to know what was going on. "You two are so cute together," one mutual friend had commented on a photo of Emma at a restaurant. "When are you going to make it official?" Another had asked. Make it official. They were waiting for Emma and Marcus to announce their relationship publicly, which meant other people knew about the affair before I did. I felt sick. How many people had known? How many people had been watching me plan my wedding while they knew it was never going to happen? I screenshot everything, then moved on to Marcus's social media. He was less active than Emma, but I found similar patterns. Photos of places and things that seemed innocuous unless you knew what to look for. But it was his phone that I really needed to access. I needed to see their text messages, their photos, their plans. I needed to know exactly what they'd been saying about me. The problem was, I didn't have access to his phone anymore. But I remembered something. A few months ago, he'd asked me to help him set up automatic backup for his photos because he was worried about losing them if his phone broke. I'd helped him set up a shared Google Photos account that automatically backed up all his pictures. The login information was saved on my laptop. I hesitated for a moment. Going through his private photos was a violation of his privacy. But then I thought about what he'd done to me, what they'd both done to me, and I logged into the account. What I found there was worse than I'd imagined. Hundreds of photos. Marcus and Emma kissing, holding hands, lying in bed together. Photos of them at restaurants, at movies, at places I'd never been. Photos of them in my apartment, taken when I wasn't there. But the worst ones were the photos of Emma in my wedding dress. She'd tried it on, multiple times. There were photos of her in my dress, posing in front of the mirror, smiling like she was already the bride. Photos of her in my veil, my shoes, my jewelry. She'd been playing dress up with my wedding while I was at work, trying on the life she was planning to steal from me. The photos were dated from 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, she'd been in my apartment, wearing my wedding dress, while I was at the office, working to pay for it. I screenshot everything, my hands shaking with rage and disgust. But I needed more than photos. I needed their conversations. I remembered that Marcus had given me his iPad password months ago, so I could use it to look up wedding vendor information. If he hadn't changed it, and if his messages were synced across devices, I might be able to access his texts. I drove to his apartment building and waited in the parking lot until I saw him leave for work. Then I used my key, he'd never asked for it back, to let myself into his apartment. His iPad was on the kitchen counter, exactly where he always left it. I turned it on and held my breath as I entered his passcode. It worked. I opened his messages and found what I was looking for immediately. A conversation thread with Emma that went back 6 months, with over 2,000 messages. I started reading, and what I found made me physically ill. Marcus, she's at another dress fitting today. I can't believe she's spending $3,000 on a dress for a wedding that's never going to happen. Don't feel bad. She chose to spend that money. We didn't force her to. Sometimes I think we should just tell her now and get it over with. We've talked about this. If we tell her now, she'll have time to cancel everything and get some of her money back. If we wait until closer to the date, she'll be stuck with all the costs and we can take over the bookings. That seems cruel. She's going to be hurt either way. At least this way, we get the wedding we want, and she doesn't lose all her money. I guess you're right. I am right. Trust me, this is the best way to handle it. They had planned this. They had deliberately waited until it was too late for me to get my money back before telling me the truth. Emma had convinced Marcus to let me keep spending money on a wedding that was never going to happen so that they could take it over. I kept reading, feeling sicker with every message. Emma, she asked me to help her pick out flowers today. I'm going to suggest the arrangements I want for our wedding. Marcus, isn't that weird? Having her plan our wedding? Emma, It's efficient, she has good taste, and she's doing all the research. Why shouldn't we benefit from it? What if she finds out? She won't. She's too busy being the perfect bride to notice what's happening right under her nose. She's not stupid, Em. No, but she's trusting. She trusts me completely. She would never suspect her own sister. Sometimes I feel bad about that. Don't. She's had everything handed to her our whole lives. Good job, good salary, everyone's favorite. It's my turn to have something good. I love you. I love you too. And in 3 months, we're going to have the most beautiful wedding, and everyone will see that we're perfect together. What about Sarah? Sarah will get over it. She always does. She's the strong one, remember? She'll bounce back. What if she doesn't? Then that's her choice. I'm not responsible for her happiness. I had to stop reading. I ran to Marcus's bathroom and threw up, my whole body shaking with rage and betrayal. Emma had orchestrated this entire thing. She'd convinced Marcus to string me along, to let me keep spending money and planning a wedding that was never going to happen. She'd used my trust in her to help plan her own wedding. And she'd done it all while pretending to be my loving, supportive sister. I went back to the iPad and kept reading. The messages got worse. She tried on the dress again today. Maria says it's almost ready. How does it look? Amazing. I tried it on after she left. It fits me perfectly. You tried on her wedding dress? Our wedding dress. And yes, it's beautiful. I made a few suggestions for alterations that will make it even better. Emma, that's really weird. What's weird is that she's spending all this money on a dress she's never going to wear. I'm making sure it doesn't go to waste. What if she finds out you've been wearing it? She won't. Maria thinks I'm just being a supportive sister helping with fittings, and Sarah is too busy with work to notice anything. I can't believe we're doing this. We're in love, Marcus. We're not doing anything wrong. We're lying to her every day. We're protecting her from the truth until the right time. When is the right time? 3 weeks before the wedding. That's when you'll tell her you're having second thoughts. You'll ask to postpone. She'll be devastated, but she'll understand. And then, a few weeks later, we'll announce our relationship. And the wedding? We'll offer to take over all the bookings so her money doesn't go to waste. She'll be grateful, actually. She'll see that we're trying to help her. You really think she'll be grateful? I know my sister. She's practical. She'll be hurt, but she'll appreciate that we're trying to minimize the damage. What if she says no? She won't. She can't afford to lose all that money. She'll give us the wedding rather than lose everything. They had it all planned out. Every detail, every conversation, every manipulation. Emma had been 3 steps ahead of me the entire time. I kept reading, looking for more evidence. What I found was even worse. Emma, I've been thinking about the guest list. Obviously, we'll have to invite different people. What do you mean? Well, we can't invite people who are too close to Sarah. They might make things awkward. Like who? Her college friends, her coworkers, some of the family. We need people who will be happy for us, not people who will judge us. So we're going to exclude people from our wedding? It's not our fault that the situation is complicated. We have to be smart about it. What about your parents? They'll come around. They love me, and they want me to be happy. Once they see how good we are together, they'll understand. What about Sarah's grandmother? She's the one who suggested the venue. What about her? Won't she be upset that we're using her family's special place for our wedding after what we did to Sarah? She doesn't have to know the details. We'll tell her that Sarah decided she wasn't ready for marriage and asked us to take over the booking so the money wouldn't be wasted. That's not technically true. It's close enough to true. The point is, we're not letting the venue go to waste. I still think we should tell Sarah sooner. Marcus, we've been through this. If we tell her now, she'll cancel everything and we'll have to plan our own wedding from scratch. This way, we get the wedding of our dreams and she doesn't lose all her money. I guess. Besides, she's been so stressed about the wedding planning. We're actually doing her a favor by taking it off her hands. I love you, but sometimes you scare me. I scare you? You're so good at this. At planning, at manipulating situations. Sometimes I wonder if you're manipulating me too. I'm not manipulating you. I'm taking care of us. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. I love you, Marcus. Everything I'm doing is so we can be together. Don't you want that? Of course I do. Then trust me. I know what I'm doing. I screenshotted everything, message by message. By the time I finished, I had over 200 screenshots of their conversations, evidence of their affair, their lies, their manipulation, and their plan to steal my wedding. But I wasn't done yet. I needed to know more about their plans, their timeline, their vulnerabilities. I scrolled through more recent messages, looking for information about their wedding plans. Emma. I talked to Mrs. Patterson today. She's excited about the new couple taking over the booking. What did you tell her? That Sarah realized she wasn't ready for marriage and asked us to take over so the money wouldn't be wasted. She was very understanding. Did she buy it? Completely. She even offered to make some adjustments to the decorations to make it more our style. What kind of adjustments? I suggested we change the color scheme from Sarah's burgundy and gold to navy and blush. More modern, more us. Won't that cost extra? A little, but it's worth it. I don't want our wedding to look exactly like the one Sarah planned. Our wedding. I still can't believe we're doing this. In 6 weeks, we'll be married. Isn't that worth everything we've been through? What about the guests? People are going to have questions. I've been thinking about that. We should send out new invitations explaining the situation. What are we going to say? That Sarah realized she wasn't ready for marriage and asked us to take over her wedding plans. We're honoring her wishes and making sure her hard work doesn't go to waste. That makes us sound like heroes. We are heroes. We're saving her from a bigger heartbreak down the line. Do you really believe that? I have to believe it. The alternative is admitting that we're terrible people. Maybe we are terrible people. No, we're not. We're people who fell in love. That's not a crime. Lying to your sister for 6 months is pretty close to a crime. We'll make it up to her. After the wedding, we'll help her find someone better, someone who deserves her. And you don't think I deserve her? I think you deserve me, and I deserve you. That's all that matters. I had everything I needed. Not just evidence of their affair, but proof of their elaborate plan to steal my wedding and manipulate everyone around them. But I wasn't going to just expose them. I was going to destroy them. I spent the next 2 weeks planning my revenge as carefully as I'd planned my wedding. I researched, I strategized, I prepared for every possible scenario. First, I called Mrs. Patterson at the venue. Mrs. Patterson, this is Sarah Lasser. I need to ask you about something. Of course, dear. How are you holding up? I'm managing. I wanted to ask you about the people who contacted you about taking over my wedding booking. Oh yes, your sister and her fiancé. Such a lovely couple. They're trying to make the best of a difficult situation. What exactly did they tell you? That you'd realized you weren't ready for marriage and asked them to take over the booking so your money wouldn't be wasted. I think it's very mature of all of you to handle it this way. Mrs. Patterson, I need to tell you something. That's not what happened. I told her everything. The affair, the lies, the manipulation. I showed her the screenshots of their text messages, the photos of Emma in my wedding dress, the evidence of their plan. Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a long time after I finished talking. My dear, she said finally, I am so sorry. I had no idea. I know you didn't. They lied to you, just like they lied to me. What do you want me to do? I want you to let them have their wedding, I said, but I want to make some adjustments to the arrangements. What kind of adjustments? I want to give them exactly what they deserve. Mrs. Patterson was quiet again. Then she said, Tell me what you need. The next 2 weeks were the most intense of my life. I was planning the perfect revenge, and every detail had to be exactly right. I started by reaching out to everyone on Emma and Marcus's new guest list. I had access to it because Emma had used our shared Google Drive to store all her wedding planning documents. She'd been so confident that I'd never find out, she hadn't even bothered to hide anything. I crafted a careful message and sent it to every single person they'd invited. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to reach out personally about the wedding invitation you received from Emma and Marcus. I know they told you that I realized I wasn't ready for marriage and asked them to take over my wedding plans, but I wanted you to know the truth about what really happened. I attached a carefully curated selection of screenshots showing their affair timeline, their lies, and their plan to steal my wedding. I made sure to include the messages where they talked about excluding certain guests and manipulating the story to make themselves look good. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, I had dozens of messages from friends and family members expressing their shock and outrage. Many of them said they'd had a feeling something was wrong with Emma and Marcus's story, but they hadn't wanted to pry. My cousin Jennifer called me within an hour of receiving my message. "Sarah, I am so sorry," she said. "I knew something was off about this whole thing. Emma's been posting cryptic photos for months, and when I got the wedding invitation, I couldn't understand how she'd planned an entire wedding so quickly." "Did you know about the affair?" I asked. I suspected something was going on, but I never imagined it was this bad. The way she talked about Marcus at family dinners, the way she'd get defensive when anyone mentioned your wedding. I should have said something. "It's not your fault, Jen. They were very good at hiding it." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve." By the end of the week, almost everyone on their guest list had either declined to attend or sent me messages of support. Emma and Marcus had no idea what was coming. But I wasn't done yet. I had one more surprise planned. I called Maria, the seamstress who'd altered my wedding dress. "Maria, it's Sarah Lasser. I need to ask you about my wedding dress." "Oh, Sarah, I heard about what happened. I'm so sorry, dear." "Thank you. I wanted to ask you about the alterations you made to the dress. Did Emma ask you to make any changes?" There was a pause. "She did ask me to make some adjustments. She said you wanted to surprise your fiancé with a slightly different look." "What kind of adjustments?" "She asked me to take in the waist by 2 inches and shorten the train by 4 inches. She also asked me to add some additional beading to the neckline." My blood ran cold. "Did she try the dress on when she made these requests?" Another pause. "Yes, she did. She said she was making sure the alterations would look right on you." "Maria, I need to tell you something. Emma has been having an affair with my fiancé for 6 months. She's planning to wear my dress to marry him." "Oh my God," Maria whispered. "I had no idea. I thought she was just being a helpful sister." "She was being helpful, all right? Helpful to herself. What do you want me to do?" "I want you to make one more alteration to the dress, but this one needs to be our secret." I explained my plan to Maria. She was quiet for a long time, then said, "Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure. It's quite devious. They deserve it." "You're right, they do." The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday in October, exactly 2 months after my original date. I spent the morning getting ready, not as a bride, but as someone who was about to expose the truth to everyone who mattered. I arrived at Willowbrook Estate 2 hours before the ceremony, just as Emma and Marcus were arriving with their wedding party. The guest list had been decimated by my revelations, but about 30 people had still come, mostly Marcus's friends and a few family members who either didn't believe my story or didn't care. Emma looked beautiful in my wedding dress, just as I'd known she would. She'd had her hair and makeup done exactly the way I'd planned to have mine done. She was even wearing my grandmother's jewelry, which she'd somehow convinced my parents to let her borrow. She was living my exact wedding down to the smallest detail. I watched from the parking lot as she posed for photos with Marcus and their small wedding party. She looked happy, radiant even. She thought she'd gotten away with it. But the ceremony was about to begin, and I had one final surprise. I walked into the venue just as the processional music started. Emma was standing at the back of the aisle with our father, who looked uncomfortable but was trying to do his duty as the father of the bride. When Emma saw me, her face went white. "Sarah," she whispered, "what are you doing here?" "I came to see my sister get married," I said loudly enough for the nearby guests to hear. In my wedding dress, at my wedding venue, with my wedding flowers. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Emma. I understand that you've been planning this for 6 months. I understand that you let me spend $50,000 on a wedding that was never going to happen so that you could steal it for yourself. The music stopped. Everyone in the venue was staring at us. Sarah, please, our father said quietly. Don't do this here. Where should I do it, Dad? At Christmas dinner? At Emma's housewarming party? When would be a good time to talk about how your daughter stole my fiancé and my wedding? We can discuss this later. No, I said firmly. We're going to discuss this now in front of everyone who's here to celebrate this beautiful love story. I walked down the aisle to where Marcus was standing at the altar. He looked like he was going to be sick. Hi, Marcus, I said cheerfully. Beautiful day for a wedding, isn't it? Sarah, I just wanted to thank you, I continued, still speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear, for 6 months of lying to me, for letting me plan your wedding to my sister, for making me feel like I was crazy when I suspected something was wrong. I never meant for any of this to happen, he said quietly. Of course you didn't. You just accidentally started sleeping with my sister. You just accidentally let me spend $50,000 on a wedding that was never going to happen. You just accidentally decided to steal my entire wedding for yourselves. I turned to address the guests, who were all staring at me with a mixture of shock and fascination. I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate Marcus and Emma's love story, I said. I thought you might like to know how it really began. 6 months ago, while I was planning my wedding to Marcus, Emma reached out to him to plan a surprise bachelor party. That's when they started their affair. I pulled out my phone and started reading from their text messages. She's at another dress fitting today. I can't believe she's spending $3,000 on a dress for a wedding that's never going to happen, I read aloud. That's from Marcus to Emma, 3 months ago. Gasps rippled through the small crowd. Here's a good one from Emma, I continued. If we tell her now, she'll have time to cancel everything and get some of her money back. If we wait until closer to the date, she'll be stuck with all the costs and we can take over the bookings. Sarah, stop, Emma said, walking quickly down the aisle toward me. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene? I laughed. Emma, you've been making a scene for 6 months. You've been wearing my wedding dress, sleeping with my fiancé, and planning to steal my wedding. I'm just making sure everyone knows what kind of people you really are. We fell in love, she said desperately. We couldn't help it. You're right, I said. You couldn't help falling in love. But you could help lying to me for 6 months. You could help letting me spend $50,000 on a wedding that was never going to happen. You could help trying on my wedding dress while I was at work paying for it. I turned back to the guests. Emma has been wearing this dress for months, I announced. She's been coming to my apartment when I wasn't there and playing dress up with my wedding. She even convinced the seamstress to alter it to fit her better, claiming I wanted to surprise Marcus with a different look. That's not true, Emma said, but her voice was shaking. It is true, Emma, and I can prove it. I pulled out my phone and showed the crowd the photos I'd found on Marcus's Google Photos account. Photos of Emma in my dress, in my apartment, posing like she was already the bride. These photos are from 3 weeks ago, I said. 3 weeks before Marcus broke up with me, Emma was already planning to wear my dress to marry my fiancé. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the wedding party looked horrified. But here's the thing, I continued. I don't mind that you stole my wedding. I don't mind that you stole my fiancé. Because I've learned something important about both of you. I turned to look at Marcus. Marcus, you're a coward who couldn't tell me the truth until I'd already lost $30,000. You're the kind of man who lies to someone for 6 months rather than have one difficult conversation. Then I turned to Emma. And Emma, you're the kind of person who would let her sister plan her own heartbreak. You're the kind of person who would steal someone's wedding dress and wear it to marry their ex-fiancé. I paused, looking around the room. So please, everyone, enjoy the reception. Enjoy the menu I chose, the flowers I picked, the music I selected. Enjoy the wedding I spent 2 years planning and $50,000 paying for. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Emma, you might want to be careful when you sit down. I had Maria make one final alteration to the dress. The seams are only held together with temporary stitching. They're designed to give out under stress. Emma's eyes widened in horror, and she looked down at the dress. Don't worry, I said with a smile. It'll probably last through the ceremony. Probably. I walked out of the venue, leaving them all staring after me. I drove home and waited. About an hour later, my phone started buzzing with messages from guests at the wedding. OMG, the dress completely fell apart during the first dance. Emma is in the bathroom crying. Half the skirt just detached. This is the most dramatic wedding I've ever been to. Marcus looks like he wants to disappear. But the best message came from my cousin Jennifer. Sarah, I just wanted you to know that everyone here is talking about how terrible Emma and Marcus are. No one is on their side. Your speech was incredible. You destroyed them. I smiled and put my phone away. I was done with both of them. Over the next few weeks, the story spread through our family and social circles. Emma and Marcus became pariahs. They'd gotten married, technically, but their reputation was ruined. Emma tried to call me dozens of times, but I never answered. She sent long texts apologizing and trying to explain, but I deleted them without reading them. Marcus tried to reach out too, but I blocked him on everything. My parents called to try to mediate, but I told them I was done. I'd said everything I needed to say at the wedding. She's your sister, my mother said. Family is forever. Family doesn't steal your wedding, I replied. Family doesn't lie to you for 6 months. Family doesn't let you spend $50,000 on their happiness. She made a mistake. She made a choice. Every day for 6 months, she chose to lie to me. That's not a mistake. That's who she is. 6 months later, I heard through the family grapevine that Emma and Marcus had gotten divorced. Apparently, once the excitement of their forbidden love wore off, they realized they didn't actually have much in common. Emma had moved back in with our parents, and Marcus had moved to another city. I didn't feel bad for either of them. I did feel bad for the $50,000 I'd lost, but I'd gotten something valuable in return. The knowledge that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, and that I could survive anything. 2 years later, I met David, a kind, honest man who would never dream of lying to me or betraying my trust. When we got engaged, I didn't spend months planning an elaborate wedding. We got married in a simple ceremony in my grandmother's backyard, with just our closest friends and family. Emma wasn't invited. As I stood there in my new wedding dress, a simple, elegant gown that cost $300, I realized that I'd learned something important from my sister's betrayal. The quiet ones often carry the whole house, but we don't have to carry people who don't deserve us. Sometimes the people who give the most need to learn when to stop giving. And sometimes the best revenge is living well while the people who wronged you destroy themselves. That's episode 1 of Family Betrayals That Went Too Far. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted them privately? Or would you have chosen public humiliation like I did? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for episode 2 next week, where we'll explore what happens when a mother-in-law goes too far and the daughter-in-law decides to fight back. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Because sometimes the people who seem the most innocent are the ones you should fear the most.